Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today I got an interesting note, people call them bills, to show you. It's a 1935 Series A Hawaiian Overprint bill, or note. I know what you're saying, I made that up, that can't be real. It is. So let's get over to the bench and take a look at it and learn a few things. So let's talk a little bit about what a Hawaiian overprint note is all about. So if you remember your history, Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941, and the US government was thinking, you know what, if the Japanese take over the Hawaiian Islands, they could come up with a whole lot of cash, American currency, that they could use to buy, support their war effort or whatever. Well, the US government thought about it and said, you know what, we don't want that happening. We want a way to be able to identify those bills that were in circulation on the Hawaiian Islands, and then we could render those bills useless, right? No longer valid currency. So what they decided to do was take some regular currency and print them in a slightly different way to make them distinguishable from those the bills circulating around the rest of the world. And so that's what they did. So if we take a look at a regular note, hang on, this is something we'd see today, right? This one is a 2017, right? So very current. But we look at it, we're all familiar with how this looks and whatever. But of course, back then, things were just slightly different, right? So this is a regular bill. This is a 1935E. So it was probably printed a little later than some of the other 1935 bills, right? Because we know that 1935 is the year that it was approved, and then every time the signature changed, they would change the revision from an A to a B so this is an E, so this was probably printed much later. So if we remember from our last video, maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, we noticed this bill, right? Current bill, green seal. This one has a blue seal, right? And the blue seal identified a silver certificate note, right? And the green seal is a Federal Reserve note. They stopped making silver certificates back in 60 something or other. So you don't see these much in circulation, right? People tend to grab those up because they're unique and different and whatever. So let's get this one out of the way. So let's bring in this other one, right? Here's the 1935 Series A. For the most part, it's very similar. The seal changes, right? This is a brown seal. And as the last video, we showed a bill with a red seal, and that looks kind of red, and the bill is very dirty. Maybe it needs to get a washing. I did a video of actually taking a bill and washing it with some OxyClean, not a sponsor, and like a small paintbrush that was gentle, and I could just work through it or whatever. Because they're not made out of paper, really, they're made out of cotton and linen. They're meant to be more durable, so I could actually clean this one. The true numismatists, collectors of bills and coins and things, would probably have a fit if I decided to do that. It's got a very pronounced wrinkle right here, right? That bill must have been folded in half this way and not that way, which is odd. But anyway, I don't even know where I picked this up. But so we see here Hawaii over here and over here, right? Another thing to notice is the serial number is also in the same color brown. right? And let's take a look at that other note that we looked at last time. This $5 bill, right? That's a red seal. That's a brown seal. So just to refresh your memory, what that looked like. And to make sure we can see the difference between the red and the brown. So anyway, so we see that, right? And so these notes, right, were the government decided that these would be replacing these kind of notes, right? They're both silver certificates. So I guess you could say this is a silver certificate that does not have a blue seal because it's a special Hawaiian note. Anyway, so the government said, all right, everybody living on the islands, you got so long just to take and trade in these and get one of these. And they wanted everybody to trade in all their bills. Citizens, private individuals, whatever, could keep, I think they said $200 worth of these type of notes. And businesses could keep like 500. Not sure why they did that. So you had a certain amount of time to trade in your bills. And, you know, if you kept a bunch of these in your closet or under your mattress or wherever you kept your money, they'd eventually be useful again, but you ran the risk. That was all up to you. So if we take a look at the back of this one, let's look at the back of this one first, right? Because the last bill we looked at, a very different looking back. So this one, identical, right? Nothing changes except in outline letters, Hawaii, right? Across the back, almost blends in a little bit, right? It's hard to tell. But these bills were, you know, meant to be very different. If I took, this is the still legal tender, even though after the war was over and they allowed people to take these in and exchange them for these, but these are still legal tender. I could go spend this if I wanted. Of course, somebody would look at that and go, yeah, that's fake. That's not real. So I think it was January of 42 when they started recalling all the regular notes and wanted to substitute these notes. Just looking at my notes. Another interesting bit to all of this, right? If we look at, let's go back and bring this bill in, and let's look at this one as well. So this is the 1935, and we look at the back and we say, yeah, it's looks pretty much identical, except for one difference. In God We Trust does not exist on the 1935 version. And if we look at the back of our Hawaiian note, it's not there either. Well, evidently, and I haven't seen one or whatever, but some of the notes that were printed in 1935 had In God We Trust. It was later brought in, and some don't. So even though 1935 bills printed for many years, if you find one, you know, there's a difference between the two. You might, I don't remember what series they were, but might be worth more money. Let's look at our $5 bill. Which one is this? This is a 1928. That's an old bill. So anyway, thought you might like to see a Hawaiian overprint. So they don't do all of these, you know, it's not like a inkjet printer or laser printer where it prints all the colors, everything all at once. They go in and they print part of it, and then those bills get set aside, and then they run through a different print line to get whatever seal and serial number and, you know, whatever else printed on them. And then later on, I don't know what order they do this in, then they said, oh, we've got to run it through another print cycle to do the Hawaii part. So yeah, maybe I should give this a clean just to see what happens. It's not like the ink is gonna disappear or anything. It's just this line right here being so fragile, you know. I don't know what would happen. I would hate to see the bill, you know, rip in half and become even more useless, right? Just to see that it gets cleaner. So I think I have a picture of the bill I was working on. It wasn't this one, it was a different one. So anyway, that's a 1935 Series A Hawaiian overprint bill. So a little bit of interesting history behind that one. Its value, it's probably, from what I've seen online, it's probably worth about 10 bucks. If it were uncirculated, of course, that raises the value, but 10 bucks, yeah, I wouldn't be interested in wanting to sell it for anything. It's just more interesting to have as a piece of history, and, you know, that's where I get think of its value. I'm not sure where I got this note. You know, I've been collecting since I was younger, and you know, my aunts and uncles and parents and everybody would know I was interested in this. And when they'd come across something, they would, you know, give it to me and say, "Hey, we think this is neat. You might like it." My dad served in World War II. Later, he went to Africa to drive a tank destroyer. Like the last year of the war or something. He just turned 18. So he probably didn't get this note because this would have been found mostly in Hawaii. But I had an uncle who served on the USS Gambier Bay. It was an aircraft carrier, smaller aircraft carrier, that sank in the Pacific somewhere. I forget where. And he spent 2 days in the water with the rest of his crewmates that made it off the ship. And he might have come back through Pearl Harbor on his way back to the States or something. He might have been the one that picked this up for me. So here's another interesting piece of the history of this. So, right, everybody had these type of notes, right? That was the currency. And when they said trade them in, so they had, you know, I don't know, 100,000 of these, 200,000, a million, whatever, of these notes that they don't want the enemy to get a hold of. So instead of shipping them back to the States to be destroyed at, you know, whatever facility the government was using, they said, you know what, we're going to just destroy them on the islands, Hawaiian Islands somewhere. So they contracted with a crematoria, kind of gruesome, to destroy them, and it wasn't going fast enough. And so they found I think it was a sugarcane plantation that took the pulp or the fibers or whatever after they extracted the sugar, and they would burn that to generate steam and power some of their equipment. So they had these huge furnaces to do that. And so they contracted with those folks and said, you know, destroy all these bills. And so they just burned them. And I tried to find out what the numbers were, but I couldn't find any numbers to support the idea. But anyway, that's how they got rid of the bills. I mean, putting, you know, $400 million or whatever on a ship to send it back to the States, it's like, well, now you've just taken all the money that was scattered throughout the islands in several banks and whatever and put it all on one ship. Japanese capture that ship? Well, that was a big deal. So anyway, yeah, that's why, and then these, you know, they recalled them all. And after the war was over, I'm guessing, I don't remember what year, and then they destroyed these too, right? And so you don't see a lot of them. I don't remember, it was like 35 million $1 bills were overprinted for Hawaii. Who knows how many they collected back. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video and maybe learned a little something, and hope it was interesting. If you're in the right mood, give it a like, give it a comment, or subscribe to the channel. And next video, I have a coin I want to show you that I've had for probably about 45 years. I'll tell you the whole story then, but that coin's well over 100 years old and pretty interesting, I think. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and be a good human, and see you next time.